Donald Trump publicly stated that he is ready to leave the Middle East and abandon his allies in trouble. The President of the United States stated directly that the U.S. will no longer help its allies. Trump stated that the U.S. will no longer help those countries that refuse to participate in unblocking the Strait of Hormuz, which, according to Trump himself, is not actually a problem. Moreover, Trump said that now it is up to the Europeans to unblock the strait, and that the Persian Gulf countries must pay him because he basically started a war against Iran, otherwise he will leave them alone to face the regime in Tehran. In fact, Trump is taking his allies hostage. He directly states that if anyone needs oil, they should buy it from the US or go solve the problem with the Strait of Hormuz themselves. But it's also worth noting that for the first time, the Europeans showed their teeth to Donald Trump and began closing their airspace one after another. And when the White House asked Europe to send air defense systems to the Middle East to help the Americans, Europe refused. My name is Pechiy. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start this episode, I ask you to support the work of this YouTube channel with your donation, paid subscription, or sponsorship on YouTube. How to do this? All the links and details are in the description of this video, at the end of the episode. If you find it interesting and useful, you can make a donation in any way that's convenient for you. There, believe me, you'll find different platforms and bank details, crypto wallets, PayPal, Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and YouTube sponsorship. In short, just pick something that suits you best. And don't forget to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechiy News. The link is also in the description of this video. There we post breaking news as soon as it comes in. So, Donald Trump publicly and directly stated today that the US will no longer defend or help its allies, both in NATO and in the Persian Gulf region. Trump said directly that he was offended that no one helped him in the war with Iran, and that's why he's ready to end this war and just walk away, slamming the door behind him. And as for all the other problems, he basically said, deal with them yourselves. On Tuesday, President Trump criticized European allies for not supporting the US enough in the war with Iran and made it clear that they would have to open the Hormuz Strait on their own. This is already the third time in recent days that Trump has publicly hinted that he might end the war in Iran without reopening the Hormuz Strait. The US will leave other countries to deal with the extremely serious economic problem on their own and to restore the supply of about 1/5 of the world's oil reserves. When U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was asked about his statement on Tuesday, he refrained from naming the reopening of the Hormuz Strait as one of the main objectives. He emphasized that although the U.S. is creating conditions for the reopening of the strait, this is, he said, not just a U.S. problem. Quote, other countries should heed President Trump's statement, and President Trump says the following, quote, to all those countries that cannot get aviation fuel because of the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, and to the United Kingdom, which refused to intervene in Iran's beheading, I have a proposal for you. First of all, buy this fuel from the US. We have plenty of it. And secondly, finally have the courage. Go to the strait and just take this fuel. Then Trump added that the UK and other countries will have to, quote, start learning to fight for themselves. The US will no longer help you. Just like you didn't help us. Trump emphasized that after 4 weeks of US attacks on Iran, the hardest part of the job is already done. Quote, go and get your own fuel yourselves. It's interesting. Trump says, you didn't help us, so we won't help you. First of all, no one even consulted with the Europeans before the war started. The Europeans didn't even know that their NATO ally was about to start a war. And secondly, Donald Trump, well, I lost count of how many times, publicly stated that he didn't need any help. He said, we can handle it ourselves, we don't need any help. He insulted, let me remind you, the British and said, no, don't get involved here. When Keir Starmer said, okay, we're sending our aircraft carriers to help the Americans, Trump insulted Starmer and said, oh, so you want to take credit for our victory? I don't need your help, that's it, take your aircraft carriers away. Now he's whining and saying, oh, I was abandoned, now I won't help you either. Well, I don't know, that's certainly one position to take. Well, write in the comments who. In the second message, published a few minutes later, Trump criticized France for banning American planes carrying ammunition to Israel from passing through French airspace. And right away, Trump threatened France, saying he would remember this and abandon the Europeans when they need help. But, as they say, it's not just France. This week, Spain announced that it refuses to allow American military planes to use its airspace. Airspace for attacks on Iran. Italy also refused to allow American military planes to land at one of its military bases from where they were supposed to take off and fly to the Middle East. Well, here's an interesting episode. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. I'll share more in the next episode. Here, the Italians acted in a very interesting way, and the Americans behaved extremely brazenly. I'll give you a spoiler. The Americans wanted to just land their military planes without any warning at all. Military planes with ammunition in Italy, just to refuel and take off again, without informing the Italians about it at all. But we'll discuss this situation a bit later. The United Kingdom and France have shown a willingness to cooperate in certain aspects, helping the Gulf states intercept Iranian drones and missiles. The United Kingdom allows the United States to use some of its air bases to carry out strikes against Iran. Well, France has expressed its willingness to lead a multinational task force in the Hormuz Strait after the hostilities subside. But of course, no one wants to get involved in the war. But that's not all. Remember, there were rumors that Trump demanded money from the Persian Gulf countries both for continuing and for stopping the war. That was stated at the time by an Omani official. I had a separate episode about this topic on this YouTube channel, so it turned out to be true. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said today that U.S. President Donald Trump is interested in proposing that Arab countries take on the costs associated with the war against Iran. During the briefing, Leavitt was asked whether Arab countries are ready to help the United States pay for the costs of the war. In response, she noted that she does not want to get ahead of herself and comment on behalf of the president, but confirmed that Trump does have such an idea. Quote, "I think this is something the president will very eagerly suggest they do. Trump will probably speak more about this initiative publicly himself in the near future. I know he has this idea, and in my opinion, you will hear more from him about it." So Donald Trump, who started the war, only made the situation in the Middle East worse, led to the blockade of the Hormuz Strait, lifted sanctions on Iranian oil, and now is demanding that the Gulf countries reimburse him for the costs of this war. And this is despite the fact that, according to Bloomberg estimates, the Gulf monarchies have already lost up to $200 billion globally. Plus, don't forget about the constant attacks on the Gulf countries because of the war that Trump started. Well, in the meantime, while Trump is winning this war with words, the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has announced that starting April 1st, it will begin attacking the facilities of Google, Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, and other American tech giants in the Middle East, which could lead to an internet shutdown. The IRGC has released a list of 18 American companies in the region and advised employees of these institutions to immediately resign in order to save their lives. This is how Trump wins the war. I ask you to support the work of this YouTube channel with your donation, paid subscription, or sponsorship on YouTube. How can you do this? All links and details are in the video description. Subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechiy News, using the link there. Thanks for watching.